You remember the SpongeBob episode that fans say was a mistake? Yeah, the one where the whole emotional balance got flipped on its head? Well, recently, they just dropped a new episode in Season 16. But when I watched it, it was very clear. It's the same kind of mistake, just with a very different flavor. Because here, not only are they changing the emotional balance of the characters, they go as far as rewriting the rules of Bikini Bottom. And not for a good reason like last time. Because the writers somehow butchered a clever idea and ended up making a fever dream. So to understand it better, we're going back to the beginning of this bizarre adventure. Right from the very first second of this episode, they really went all out with the bizarre theme, by going so far as making up a whole new opening song. That was really refreshing, I'm not gonna lie. So the story opens in a place that kinda looks like a pineapple home, with a lot more saturated color. We also meet this guy, Sponge Tom. He wears a bow tie, lives in a melon, pets a slug named Barry, and instead of shouting, "I'm ready!" he calmly goes,
"I'm prepared."
Yeah, that's not SpongeBob. He walks to work at the Crunchy Crab, where every customer is nice and reliable, gets a high five from his coworker Awkward, who is actually nice. And the Crunchy Crab doesn't sell patties, it serves crunchy tacos. At this point, all the little details are pointing at an opposite day kind of theme. But the most clear sign comes from Mr. Claus, who shows up in blue color, wearing an apron and giving Sponge Tom the day off early. You heard that right. Mr. Claus just gave someone a day off. Willingly. And as if that's not weird enough, it only gets weirder from here. After 2 minutes of meeting the bizarro locals, we finally catch up with our main guy, SpongeBob, who is so tired after his shift at the Krusty Krab that he sleeps right past his stop and drifts into the tidal zone. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of tidal zone in the modern episode, it's basically their take on the Twilight Zone, where a character slips into a strange place that just feels off. And in SpongeBob's case, the trip usually starts on a bus. Think of it like the journey to rock bottom. Yeah, like the one from my rock bottom theory video. If you haven't watched it, you're missing out. Anyway, the bus drops SpongeBob at the melon house, which he mistakes for his own. He's that tired. And thanks to some perfectly timed coincidence, SpongeBob made it through to the bedroom without Tom noticing and went to sleep right away. Since Sponge Tom heads off on vacation at the exact same time, it's pretty clear that we're about to live Sponge Tom's life from SpongeBob's eyes. So the bizarre adventure begins. SpongeBob wakes up the next morning, yawns, stretches, and immediately realizes something's wrong. He reaches for the doorknob, except, surprise, it's not where it should be. He's a bit thrown, but he's also late, so he keeps moving. Now, SpongeBob brushing his teeth normally wouldn't be a standout moment. But today, he grabs a toilet cleaner instead of a toothbrush, scrubs with full confidence, and only notices when his foamy reflection shows up in the wrong mirror. Breakfast is next. Soap flakes in a bowl, topped with orange juice. He downs it like nothing's wrong, until his mouth bubbles like a washing machine. That's when it hits him. He's late for work. So he does what he always does. Charges into the Crunchy Crab. He runs in yelling, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here," and everyone greets him like,
"Good morning, Sponge Tom."
This is the first time SpongeBob finally starts to notice things are off. Really off. Squidward isn't Squidward. He's Awkward now. And he's nice to him. Mr. Krabs is Mr. Claus now. He's wearing an apron today since he said he's the only one who makes tacos on Sponge's day off. And the Krabby Patties? Forget it. They don't exist here. So SpongeBob panics. He bolts. He's convinced everyone's been swapped by evil doppelgangers. Now, I get why fans call this episode a mistake. You can't help but think, why would SpongeBob just snap like that? He's usually pretty chill with weird folks. But it gets even stranger from here. SpongeBob stumbles across the Yum Bucket, except in this world, the place is booming, packed with customers like it's the hottest pub in town. And for SpongeBob, this is basically a sign of the apocalypse. SpongeBob still insists that it's just a weird dream, so he decides to get a new pair of glasses and somehow convinces himself that blurry, but in a reassuring way, is better than seeing reality. That's kinda deep. Then he spots Patrick and Sandy, or so he thinks. He sprints over, steals Patrick's fries, sips Sandy's drink, then realizes these aren't Patrick and Sandy. They're Preston and Sammy. Yeah, That happened. At this point, SpongeBob is screaming at random strangers, running through Tankini Top like a possessed guy. He sees a mustached Mrs. Puff called Mrs. Gruff. He sees Larry's gym turned into Harry's gym. And because some things never change, finally, desperate and losing it, SpongeBob heads to his parents' house. It's bright yellow. The doorbell squirts lemon juice in his eye. And when it opens, he's face to face with Sponge Tom, the doppelganger, the Melon Man himself. They mirror each other, wave their hands around, and for SpongeBob, that's the breaking point. He rants about doppelgangers, calls the whole town dingy weirdos. His eyes go red, foam actually comes out of his mouth, and he collapses. And in one of the most anticlimactic resolutions possible, the citizens of Tankini Top all just hold hands, agree to pack him a lunch, and put him on the next bus out. That's it. That's the resolution. And before you know it, he's back in Bikini Bottom, on a bench, with Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs watching over him. He wakes up, laughs it off like it was all a dream, and of course, Mr. Krabs tells him he's late for work. Roll credits. And that's the episode. SpongeBob wanders into Tankini Top, gets mistaken for his double, sprints through a taco-flavored fever dream, and wakes up like nothing happened. Now, if you're just listening to me retelling the story without watching, it sounds like a solid SpongeBob episode. It's got the title zone set up, the spooky alternate universe vibe, and lots of room to play with new characters. The problem is, once you actually watch it, the whole thing falls apart. But before I get into what the mistake actually is, I want to make one thing clear. The premise of Bizarro Bottom isn't bad. In fact, it's kind of brilliant. Taking Bikini Bottom, a place we all know like the back of our hand, flip it inside out, turn it into a Twilight Zone parody, then drop SpongeBob right in the middle with no idea what's going on? On paper, that should be a recipe for one of the most memorable SpongeBob episodes, or at least in the modern season. But instead of using that idea to explore the characters, to show what really defines them once you strip away the familiar, the episode takes the easy way out. The prime example of this problem is that they don't commit to polar opposites. They just shuffle things around at random for some characters. Mr. Krabs becomes Mr. Claus, who's turned blue instead of red. He's also a generous and kind character that treats his employees like actual human beings. That's a true opposite. Great. Meanwhile, Squidward becomes Awkward, who's friendly and encouraging. It's also a good joke that Awkward is a squid, despite the fact that his name has oct, like in octopus. Because, as we all know, Squidward is an octopus, despite having a squid in his name. Now, Awkward doesn't come off like an overachiever at work, which is a bummer, because if you watched my Breath of Fresh Squidward video, that whole Squidward becomes SpongeBob flip is what made that episode interesting. Then again, I can't judge Awkward purely from that, since the episode didn't give him much time to show depths in his character. Maybe he's an overachiever on a daily basis, who knows? But because those two show up in the first minute, we get the impression we're about to see opposite world versions of the main cast. I'll bet we were all kind of excited to discover what everyone else looked like, right? But then, for whatever reason, the writers stopped following their own rule. Because Sponge Tom is not the polar opposite of SpongeBob. I mean, yeah, he's somewhat calmer and not rushing everything like SpongeBob. He's also not causing a traffic collision like SpongeBob did. He's also living in a melon and has a slug pet instead of a snail. It's different, sure, but not opposite. It's really frustrating me because one of the foundation jokes of this show is that we have two direct opposite characters, SpongeBob and Squidward, interacting with each other through different kinds of situations. Episodes like Can You Spare a Dime, Pizza Delivery, even one of the oldest episodes in the series, Opposite Day, is a unique way to explore these polar opposite characters. So if you're doing a doppelgangers theme, it makes sense to expect SpongeBob and Squidward to swap personalities, right? But no, SpongeBob is nowhere near grumpy Squidward. Patrick and Sandy aren't opposites either, not even close. Their characters are just weird fusions with funny names. Mrs. Puff? Slap a mustache on her and call it a day. The the Yum Bucket, is a successful burger joint, so that's great. But they're not even showing us Bizarro Plankton, which, let's be real, should have been the highlight. At first, it feels like we're getting Opposite Day 2.0. By the halfway point, it's obvious. What are the rules here? It's not opposite, it's just bizarre, which, yeah, is the title, but still. But let's step back for a second here. Maybe I'm getting carried away with my own mind, right? Some of you might say, well, you're assuming things. The title never said it's about polar opposites. Why should it be like that? Okay, fair. Maybe you're right in that sense. Let's just say they went all in on the bizarre and didn't want strict opposites. Just doppelgangers that are weird and different. Even then, they handle it in a way that feels weird and wrong to some extent. We have to remember, this is a parody of Twilight Zone. That's why they came up with the whole title zone in the first place. The main idea of Twilight Zone should be taking us to an unknown adventure that feels strange and unsettling. It's supposed to make us, the viewers, feel what SpongeBob feels as we slowly discover the weird tankini top. But for that to work, we need to discover the world with him. Instead, Bizarro Bottom spends the first 2 minutes showing us Sponge Tom's boring, opposite life before SpongeBob even gets there. So when SpongeBob came in, we already knew everything he's going to find out about. Imagine if the Rock Bottom episode opened with 2 minutes of the red anglerfish, incidental 211, walking around talking to everyone before SpongeBob ever got lost there. It wouldn't feel spooky at all. Heck, why bring in the French narrator to announce the title zone in the first 2 minutes? Shouldn't that reveal be at the end? I mean, other title zone episodes like No Picture Please or The Shift save that card for the end. Why show the trick before the magic? There's also a bigger problem here. Even if you forgive the episode for being inconsistent with its opposite gimmick, and even if you can live with the slow, odd adventure, there's no story here. Seriously, what's at stake for SpongeBob in this episode? What happens if he fails? What happens if he doesn't figure out Tankini Top? Nothing. He doesn't even try to talk it out. There isn't a single proper moment where he asks, "What is this place?" or "Who are you, really?" He just wanders around confused, panics at random strangers, screams about evil doppelgangers, and then faints. The citizens of Tankini Top also don't question him, or at least try to explain anything. They just go, "Oh, poor guy, let's pack him a lunch and put him back on the bus." That's it. That's the climax. And then, boom, he's back in Bikini Bottom, and Patrick's got a free sandwich. Although I kinda understand the reason behind that. People of Bikini Bottom are famous for being chaotic, and jerks, they'll riot over extra mustard. So yeah, maybe Tankini Top folks are the opposite, peaceful and pathetic, never mean to strangers. Also, what does Tankini Top even mean? Are we just flipping bikini to tankini and bottom to top? But if it's top, shouldn't it be above the water and not at the bottom of the sea? It's just odd. So yeah, we're left with a pile of wasted gags, half-baked opposites, and a parody that forgets what it's parodying. It honestly feels like the writers started with a clever mirror world idea and halfway through said, let's make everything kind of weird and hope no one asks questions. It's a really weird mistake. The writers were so close to gold, then got too scared to grab it. But no, I'm not saying that I could write a better story or plot than them, that's not the point. But I think there are some quick fixes that could have made this episode so much better. Like, open up right away with SpongeBob right in the middle of it with no explanation. Make us confused with him. Let us experience the strangeness moment by moment the way Rock Bottom did. Or if you're going to do a bizarro version of Bikini Bottom, then why not actually commit to the opposite rules? Sponge Tom could be more grumpy. Awkward would be cheerful to the point of annoying SpongeBob. Mr. Claus could be generous to the point of almost sinking the business. Show us smart villain Patrick. Show us meek, kinda dumb Sandy. And please, show us successful Plankton running the busy Yum Bucket. Otherwise, what's the point? Finally, we need stakes. Something SpongeBob risks by being stuck in Tankini Top. Maybe Mr. Claus offers him a job, and SpongeBob starts to doubt if he even belongs in Bikini Bottom anymore. Or maybe Awkward is so nice that SpongeBob starts to question whether Squidward ever really hated him in the first place. Maybe SpongeBob sees this world as better and has to choose between staying and going home. Any of those would have given the episode some weight. Any of those would have made the title zone concept actually worth it. But instead, SpongeBob faints, wakes up on a bench, and nothing changes. This could have been SpongeBob's best title zone episode. It could have revealed who he is by showing us what he isn't. Instead, it was tacos and funny names. What a mistake. All in all, this is an interesting counterpoint to Breath of Fresh Squidward. That episode also broke the rules. It flips the emotional balance between SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick, and for a moment, we saw what happens when Squidward finally gets to be happy. Whether you loved it or hated it, it revealed something real about the characters. It showed how fragile the emotional physics of Bikini Bottom are, and how one shift can throw everything off. But Bizarro Bottom? It breaks the rules for no reason. It doesn't reveal anything, it's just weird for the sake of being weird. Same mistake, different flavor. Now, to give credit where it's due, the episode nails one thing. It is truly, spectacularly bizarre. Even if you're watching TV while drunk or with a high fever and stumbled on this episode and then you fall asleep halfway through, you'd wake up the next day and be convinced it was all just a really weird dream. SpongeBob brushes his teeth with toilet cleaner, Patrick was replaced by a guy named Preston, a mustached Mrs. Puff teaching biking, the chum bucket successful? It all plays less like a SpongeBob story and more like a fever dream Nickelodeon snuck into the schedule just to mess with you. Maybe that was the plan. Who knows? So that's Bizarro Bottom. Another SpongeBob episode fans call a mistake. It flips the entire world without giving us anything real to hold on to. I swear, man, all these Title Zone episodes are specifically made to leave a weird taste in your mouth. The story doesn't always make sense, the details are weird, and the character design is weirder. Almost feels like a haunted dream without meaning. Which, funny enough, is exactly what I talked about in our last video, except that one did have a deeper meaning hiding underneath. The SpongeBob Haunted episode finally solved. If you thought Tankini Top was bizarre, wait until you see what I solved in that episode. I'll see you on the next dive.